Today, the wild fruits that grow in the forest, they just get wasted. But if you add value to them, they can create income and employment. Then you don't need to buy any contraceptive. The new plants, which if you eat during menstruation, you will get a temporary contraception. Kerala is very strong. Kerala, in fact, you cannot distinguish between the people who are working in the villages and Shastriya people who have studied in colleges and all that. 300,000 herbal formulations. This is a gold mine for producing future drugs in India. The Prakriti type represents a genotype. So you are actually been treating according to the genetic variability in Ayurveda. Uniform treatment for any condition is scientifically wrong.
There is an ongoing conflict between modern medicine and Ayurveda. While modern drugs go through multiple phases of clinical trials, efficacy testing, and regulatory approvals, Ayurvedic medicines don't follow the same pathway. This raises a critical question. Can we trust what hasn't been scientifically validated in the same way? On the other hand, Ayurveda doesn't just treat a disease, it treats the whole person, the body, the mind, and their unique prakriti. So, what's the bridge that can integrate these two seemingly different worlds? Welcome to a new episode of Asianet News Science Talk. Joining us today is the visionary Padma Shri Dr. Anand Darshan Shankar, a pioneer who has spent over 4 decades bridging modern science to traditional Indian health systems. He is currently the chairman of the Indian Institute of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine, managing trustee of FRLHT, and the founder vice chancellor of the Transdisciplinary University in Bengaluru. Dr. Anand Darshan Shankar, a warm welcome to Asianet News Science Talk program.
I'm happy to be here today.
Your life story is very inspiring. That is, you were born and brought up in the metropolitan city Bombay, and your father was a scientist at Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Your siblings pursued modern science and medicine, yet you chose a different path soon after your graduation. And leaving the city behind and immersing yourself in India's traditional health systems. What led to this bold shift? Was there a turning point? And who was the Gokhale in your life who advised you to go to the villages, the soul of India?
I did receive guidance from several knowledgeable persons, like there was my chancellor in Bombay called, his name was Nawab Ali Awad Jung. There was a great economist by the name of V.M. Dandekar who wrote the first book on poverty in India. There was a great visionary named Page, V.S. Page. He is the author of the employment guarantee scheme, which we now call Manrega. He was the first author of it. Raja Ramanna, a scientist who was a neighbor. B.M. Udgaonkar, also a scientist from the Tata Institute, also my neighbor. There was a great historian by the name of Dharampal. I was influenced by a group called the PPST Foundation. And of course, there was Sam Pitroda, a mentor for me. But at the time when I took the decision and when I conceived this experiential learning program that took me into the villages, it was not due to the inspiration or advice of any of these mentors. It was my own search for understanding our own society, and I felt I was cut off from the society in the University of Bombay, learning only from classrooms and libraries. So it was my own search that took me into rural India, not the advice of Gokhale or any of my other mentors. And there were several of them, but not for this purpose.
How was M.S. Swaminathan's influence in your life?
Oh, M.S. Swaminathan was a great influence, but again, not for going to rural India. I knew M.S. Swaminathan really. I met him for the first time when he was the DG of ICAR, and I was only 22. And I had already started working in rural areas. So one day I had heard about him. I went to Delhi and I simply walked into his office without any introduction or without anyone sending me there. And I sent word to his through his secretary that I wanted to meet him and that I was working on a rural program in Maharashtra. He immediately saw me without any appointment and he heard me for a few minutes when I narrated to him what I was doing. Then he got up from his chair and came to my side of the table. You know, he was on the opposite side and he sat down next to me. He said, I should talk to you like this, face to face, not on two sides of the table. And I told him, look, I need your help because we are working in these rural areas and we need help from the Maharashtra agricultural universities. And I have come to take a letter from you which will introduce me to those universities. He said, just a minute. In 5 minutes, he gave me the three letters that I needed, signed by him. And 10 minutes after meeting him, I left his office. So he was a very remarkable person. I was very, very impressed. You can't meet a secretary to the government without appointment, and you can't walk out of his office in 10 minutes with letters signed by him. So he was a great influence that way on my life in the sense that, you know, I think he was a very great man. And I have been meeting him since the age of 22. The last I met him was when he was in his 90s. It so happens that I also know his daughter, Sonia Swaminathan, very well.
Okay, sir. That was a great experience for a 22-year-old young man.
Yes,
I can
indeed it
imagine there.
was.
So, at the same age, you met the Vice Chancellor and the Chancellor of the Bombay University, expressing your desire to start an experiential master's program connecting the university education to the needs of the village community. So, what gave you the courage to meet the VC and finally Chancellor and present an educational program? We can't imagine even at this age also such a situation.
Well, I never had a problem of courage then or or now. It's just my nature. I had no difficulty. I have no difficulty in meeting anybody because you know I see everybody as human beings. Yes, they may be more talented people and far more capable than I am, but somehow from a young age, I have no difficulty in meeting anybody. I can meet a prime minister of a country. I can meet even a farmer in the village, and I don't have any problem meeting anybody. So courage was not something that I was lacking. My nature is such. But the person who helped me to start this particular program was really the Chancellor, Nawab Aliavar Jung. He was a great educationist. And when I met him, I told him, look, I would like to see a program in the university which allows students to see the society, get exposed to social reality, an experiential learning program. Why can't we start such a program in our university? And, I had no experience in this matter. I've just expressed a certain thought. And he said, look, it's a very good idea. Why don't you write a small note on it? So in those days, we used to have, notebooks which were not big ones, small ones, half size. So I just wrote on one side of a paper and gave it to him the next day. He read it and he said, look, this is a good thought, but can you make a proposal? I said, sir, I don't know what is a proposal. I have never made a proposal. I have no experience in writing proposal. I'm certainly willing to do so, but I don't know what is a proposal. So he said, no, don't worry. And he introduced me then to people like V.M. Dandekar, who was a economist in Pune, a very famous man at that time and a great thinker. He said, go and meet V.M. Dandekar. So I wrote immediately a letter to V.M. Dandekar and I said, look, I want to meet you to discuss an idea. He said, come to Pune. So I said, no, sir, because I didn't say the reason. I didn't have the money to travel to Pune and I didn't want to tax my family. So I said, no, sir, whenever you come to Bombay in the near future, let me know. I'll come and see you wherever you are. And I did so. I met him. After a brief conversation in Bombay where I met him, he said, okay, you come to Pune and you spend 3 weeks with me. So I looked at him and I said, frankly, I don't have the money to come to Pune. And even if I come, where will I stay for 3 weeks? So he said, no, don't worry. He opened his purse and gave me 50 rupees and he said, buy a ticket and come. Once you come there, we will take care of you and send you back. So that's how I went and met him. And in the 3 weeks that I spent with him, he was a very strict man. Every day he would make me write, something on the proposal. He would make me interact with all the faculty in that institute. That was the Institute of Politics and Economics in Pune University, Gokhale Institute. That had the name Gokhale. It was called Gokhale Institute of Economics and Politics. And next morning, 8 o'clock sharp, I had to meet him to show him what progress I made. Again, he would comment and let me work throughout the day on my own, along with advice from his faculty. Third day, again, I would have to meet him in the morning. And this went on for 21 days. At the end of 21 days, a proposal was ready, and he said, this is fine, this is done. So that's how the proposal got written under the guidance of a person named V.M. Dandekar. He is incidentally the author of the very first book that was written in India on measuring the poverty in India. It's a very famous book, but it was written in the 70s. Poverty in India by V.M. Dandekar.
Then how did you realize the dream of that is how you technically built the program?
The chancellor saw the proposal, he liked it, and then he said, this proposal is very good. It will encourage and permit students to spend 2 years in rural areas. But how do you know that there are any students who would be interested in such a proposal? Supposing you get no students who apply for this program, then what will you do? So I said, give me a month or so. And I had many friends in different parts of Maharashtra and people who are working in engineering colleges or in social science or in medical and so on and so forth. And so I mobilized all my friends and must have addressed hundreds of meetings or dozens of meetings really across the state, talking to students who were about to graduate in different multiple disciplines and saying, look, do you want to, postgraduate, undergo an experiential learning process? The University of Bombay may consider giving scholarships if you are willing to spend 2 years to learn directly from, the communities and from the rural areas. And I put up posters and all that, and so at the end of, 2 months, I had 500 applications. And so I took those applications with me to the chancellor and I said, yes, there are people interested. When he saw that, he was very pleased. And then he said, okay, now you have put the ball in my court. Now hold on. And just a few days later, he rang me up. He used to do that. He would ring you up directly. He rang me up at 8 o'clock in the morning and he said, in 5 minutes, my father used to work in the atomic energy, and the atomic energy quarters, residential quarters, were about 15 minutes away from Raj Bhavan, where he resided. So he said, in the next 5 minutes, I want you here in Raj Bhavan. No other, just come. So I got into an auto rickshaw and I went and reached Raj Bhavan. He met me and then he took me to a car, a government car, and he said, look, this car is going to the airport. The person who will get down from the plane is going to be Professor Nurul Hassan. He is the education minister of the country. He was the education minister during Indira Gandhi's time. He was also an educationist and a historian. He said, once this Nurul Hassan reaches the city, he's very busy. But I have made it so that you will be in the car with him traveling from airport to Raj Bhavan. Once he reaches here, you can't talk to him at all. But you have 45 minutes on the way to convince him about your idea. And I have not told him anything, it's up to you. And that was the opportunity he gave me. So I had 45 minutes with Nurul Hassan. We had a very hot and detailed sort of a discussion, agreeing, disagreeing. But by the time we reached Raj Bhavan, he said, I am convinced. And the Government of India, Ministry of Education will support this experiential learning program of Bombay University and will give you a grant. We'll invite you shortly to Delhi and you sign up papers and this, that, the other. And that's what he did.
So that's a great opportunity for a
Yes,
graduate.
that was a tremendous opportunity. I could never have done this without the help of the Chancellor, Nawab Ali Jung.
How was that program, sir, that master's program? Heard that it discontinued after 7 years. So
Yeah, that was a very good experience for the students. And the students came from different backgrounds. There were students of agriculture, there were students of medicine, there were even students from the performing arts, people who were performing arts people. Students from multiple disciplines who had joined the program. And they were all sort of expected to stay in different rural areas, including many tribal areas, and spend 2 years. And we didn't create any hostel facilities or anything like that for them in the villages. We thought that the best way they would experience the village life was to stay in the house of a villager. And that's what they did. And it was a very good experience. The students gained first-hand idea of agriculture, first-hand idea of health problems, first-hand idea of how people are disorganized to approach government for taking advantage of so many government schemes that are there for their welfare. And the performing arts people, they had a terrific experience. They thought that they would go and study the traditional performing arts in the rural area. This was in a place called Marathwada, which is a part of Maharashtra, in that rural area. And they thought they will educate the folk artists. But when they went there, they found that they were already so talented in terms of the theater and in terms of music that they had nothing to teach. All that they could tell them was that, look, can you make your theater or can you sing the songs that represent the contemporary reality and not old mythology, the Ramayana and Mahabharata and things like that. So that's the change they made, but they could make no change in the actual, performance because they were master artists, much better than the student who went there, who was a student of performing arts. So the students had a very good experience, a very good time. And some of them, even today, which is 50 years later, more than 50 years later, are still working in rural areas and serving because they developed so much confidence that they didn't look for jobs anymore.
Okay, sir.
They created their own organizations and have been serving in the village community. Some of them started in those days startups. You know, they started manufacturing micronutrients for agriculture and things like that.
What about the support you got from the university while conducting this course?
As long as the chancellor was alive, and he was alive for 7 years after this program started, I had a lot of support from the university because the chancellor used to monitor what is happening and take a lot of interest. But after he passed away, people in the university said, look, this program, which is outside of classrooms and all that, experiential learning, learning from living heritage, is not a proper program for universities. Universities must confine they can go for 1 week or 2 weeks, but not for 2 years, and only occasionally come to university for classes and all that. Or sometimes the classes were held in the villages itself. We took faculty from the university to the villages, so they didn't have to come here. But they said, look, this is very inconvenient for a university. University should have all education under the four walls of the university. And so they indicated that they would like to, consider modifying the program. They said you can continue to work, but we are going to make it now classroom based with a few weeks of field work. So at that time, I put in my resignation and I said, look, this program will not interest me because you are, restoring the old status quo. And so I quit the university.
You went to the tribal areas in Maharashtra
Yes.
and lived there for
then
some 12 years,
Then
I think.
I had I wanted to continue the same work, and so there was a small industrialist who had read about this experiential learning program at the University of Bombay, and he sent me a message saying, "Could I come and meet him?" And I met him, and he said, "Look, I have 40 acres of land in a tribal area, and I want to give it for educational purposes. Would you be interested in accepting this land and using it to develop the same kind of program that you were doing in the university?" So I did not expect that offer from anybody, but that is the offer that came. I gladly accepted it. And then we raised some money and started the same program outside the university through an NGO that worked in that tribal area. We did the same kind of work. Students would come, spend time there working on problems of the area. It is at that time that I got, so they were doing all kinds of things. There was a workshop in which they would do appropriate technology. There was a food processing unit in which they would process wild fruits, which have a huge scope. Today, the wild fruits that grow in the forest, they just get wasted. But if you add value to them, they can create income and employment. But for the purpose of this interview, which you are doing with me today, it was in that area that I saw the knowledge of the tribal people about medicinal and food plants. In a small taluka where I was based, this was the Karzat taluka on the foothills of the Western Ghats, the community knew of almost 500 different species of medicinal plants and their uses. This was very impressive and it opened my eyes. And I said, I found out that the uses that they put the plants to actually work. They were able to treat so many conditions, gynecological conditions, conditions of very difficult nature, where, for example, first time I saw, when I got really impressed, was that there was a man whose testicles had swollen up to double the size. And he said, look, I'm worried about it. Can you take me to a doctor? And passing by was a local tribal healer. And he said, you don't need to go to doctor for such a simple thing. He just plucked the leaf of a plant called Calotropis. That's the botanical name. Locally, it is called Ak. Arka is the Sanskrit name. He said, just tie this leaf around the scrotum and wear your traditional underwear and change it once a day for 4 days. The scrotum will come back to normal. It did. 4 days later, it was swollen up 2 times, 3 times the size, came back to normal. I was very impressed. I went to Pune, showed it to a great Ayurvedic physician of the time, and he said, this plant is very well known. In Sanskrit, we call this plant Arka. And Arka in Sanskrit means the sun. So just as the sun can evaporate water because of its heat, so this plant has so much heat in it that if you tie it where water has filled up in the scrotum, in the testicles, it will evaporate that water. And that's what that plant had done. In fact, that plant is even used in the abdomen when people have ascites, due to alcohol or something, water fills up in the abdomen. You just need to make a belt of the leaves of arka and tie it around the abdomen, and it will suck out all the water. Then normally you need an injection, not injection, but you need a syringe to pull out that water. Syringe is normally needed to pull out the water from the abdomen, but this plant can do it. So that is just an example. So this was my first-hand experience of seeing what the rural villages and communities know, and also what the Ayurveda knowledge system knows. This was just an example. As I went on this path, I realized that not only in the rural area I lived in, but I had convened a meeting with 30 other NGOs like myself, working from Trans-Himalayas in Ladakh down to Kanyakumari, including Kerala. And we called a meeting. They were all working in rural areas. I said, look, in our area, the people know of 500 plants and their uses. What about your area? Is it similar? And we found all across, from the Trans-Himalayas down to Kanyakumari, every single rural area then and even today know of the plants that are found in the environment and the uses of the same for both human medicine, for food, as well as for treating animals. So this is what opened my eyes, saying, look, this is a living tradition. It is a functional tradition. It is not historical. And people may say anything, but we have seen it working. Not only me, 30 other NGOs have seen it working in their respective areas. So I said to myself, we need to do something to revive, to revitalize this tradition. Why is the government ignoring this great tradition? I mean, people can become self-reliant in healthcare if they begin to use the plants that are found in their ecosystem. They don't need to depend on medicines coming from outside, expensive things and doctors and all that. Yes, certain things they'll have to do, because these medicines will not treat, say, cholera, or they will not treat a cancer. But all primary healthcare problems, cough, cold, fever, simple gynecological problems, red discharge, white discharge, PCOD, all these kinds of things the people knew the uses of. Not only for that, even to create temporary infertility. I mean, infertility meaning if you want a contraception, then you don't need to buy any contraceptive. The new plants which if you eat during menstruation, you will get a temporary contraception. So it was very remarkable, what the people knew. And this is what, I mean, with those 30 NGOs, we formed a network. It was called Lok Swasthya Parampara Sambardhan Samiti. It means Lok, people's health tradition, Swasthya Parampara, Sambardhan, revitalization, Samiti. And for 5 years, this Samiti worked in 11 different states. And all of us found that the nature of community knowledge about plants was of three kinds. Most of the knowledge was sound, it worked. Some knowledge was incomplete, it worked partially, and very little of the knowledge was actually distorted, didn't work. But majority worked either fully or incompletely, and a little bit didn't work. Now, that is the richness of local health tradition in this country.
What about Kerala,
So,
sir?
same in Kerala. Kerala is very strong. Kerala, in fact, you cannot distinguish between the people who are working in the villages and Shastriya people who have studied in colleges and all that, because the literacy level in Kerala is very high and traditions are very, very, very strong. You may find as good people sometimes, not really all the time, but you may find as good people sometimes in folk traditions. So, for example, there was an MLA from the Communist Party, M.B. Raghavan, and he had started in a part of Kerala, a Visha Chikitsa Kendra.
Okay.
And there he had himself seen that the local people had plants for treating snake bites, poisonous snake bites, pit-scaled viper, all the four kinds of poisonous snakes, Russell's viper, crate, cobra was a little difficult, but all the rest. So he had actually created a Visha Chikitsa Kendra.
And snake park
And
also.
people would come there and take treatment which was herbal. And only in cobra bite they would keep the modern drug to help the patient, because that is a very dangerous condition. But for all other conditions, they were actually treating with the local remedy. He had created a whole Kendra. ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, supported that work. So you may think that these local traditions, that is Kerala. I mean, Kerala is also very strong in Netra Chikitsa. I mean, years later, I'm talking about, there was in Tiruvalla a Netra physician who was very famous. He was not a doctor, he was not a modern doctor, nor was he a qualified, Ayurvedic physician. He was a parampara person. I brought, from Chennai, one of the best ophthalmologists from Chennai, Shankar Netralaya. He was the founder of Shankar Netralaya, this person. I persuaded him to come with me to Tiruvalla. He came and I said, "Sir, please have a look at this man's practice." He looked at it. He found some of his own patients whom they were not able to treat in Chennai because they were suffering from what is called retinitis pigmentosa. It's a degenerative disease. He found some of those patients there in this person's place. So he said, "Look, I am convinced that Netra Chikitsa in Ayurveda and in Parampara is good, but I cannot give a certificate for it unless we do more systematic studies. All I can say is they know the eye, they know the structure of the eye, they know the disease of the eye. But what I'm willing to do is that if you send me any Ayurvedic BAMS person, I will train him for a full year free of cost in how to document the conditions, and then let him start treating, but he'll have documentation before, during, after, a condition. That will show more evidence whether the Netra Chikitsa works or not. Then I will say more confidently. Now I have seen enough to say it is worth supporting, we should do something. But beyond this, I cannot say from one visit. So yes,
that
Kerala is
there
very
you
good in
started
Visha
the bridge
Chikitsa.
connecting it to the modern scientific methods.
Many people don't understand that in modern science, in medicine, what we are using is molecules. Molecules, in fact, derived from plants, but they are molecules. Now, molecules has never been used in any parampara anywhere in the world in the molecular form. Never, nowhere in the world. This is a new thing from the 18th century that modern science and chemistry found a way to extract a molecule from a plant. Prior to that 18th century, all over the world, people were only using plants. As you know, the treatment for malaria came from the use of plants in Peru, in South America. The cinchona bark, which also grows, it is native to Peru, but we have also now introduced it in India. It's a very bitter medicine that was being used by the natives of Peru for treating malarial fevers. Now, scientists, what they did was they took that bark and they extracted a molecule. And that was the first molecule drug for malaria. And, the drug came from the experience of the people didn't use the molecule. The people used the whole bark kashayam. But in modern medicine, we extract a molecule. Now, the problem with molecule is that it has never been used before. Kashayams and all have been used for centuries. So when you want to bring a molecule into medical practice, you have to be very careful. You have to be careful about the safety. You have to do clinical trials you have to do laboratory studies on that molecule and its activity. Then you have to do clinical studies. And without doing all those studies, you cannot bring a completely new thing into the medicine. That is why all those methods have to be followed and evidence has to be created that the molecule is safe and that it works. Now, that is necessary because the molecules were never used in history before. They've only started being used after the 18th century. But you cannot apply that method of investigation for a tradition like the Paramparic tradition or Ayurveda, which is an actual practice for centuries, and they're not using molecules, they're using the plants. Now, in this kind of a tradition, certainly we need to find out, evidence whether it is actually working or no. Now, the best way, of course, to find out is through first observation, like the kind that me and many NGOs did. We found that the plant Calotropis gigantea does work in relieving what is the fluid in the testicles. That's a common condition. Now, we saw it with our own eyes. So seeing is believing. But one seeing is not enough. So what we need to do is not follow the methods of investigation or the methods of generating evidence as are in Western medicine, because there it's a completely new product. It's a molecule never used before. Here, what we have to do, see, there are millions of healers working in the villages. Not today, tomorrow, they've been working for decades and centuries. There are today hundreds of very good hospitals, particularly in places like Kerala, also Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat, who are also legally practicing Ayurveda. Now, let us look at the data of the real world experience of these hospitals. Because people are coming, they are legal places. This is the new methodology today being suggested internationally. It is called generate evidence from actual practice. Real world clinical evidence. That is what it's called. This is an internationally accepted methodology. Now, India must follow that methodology. The people who have doubts about whether Ayurveda works or no must have doubts. But to clear those doubts, they must analyze records of millions of patients who are actually undergoing treatment. That data is available.
They're also
Take that data. Today we have the tools of big data analysis We have artificial intelligence tools. Use that to analyze the data retrospectively, not means last 10 years, let us see what happened. Last 20 years, let us see. You'll get millions of records. All the molecular data that modern medicine has is not based on millions of records. The sample sizes are very small. It was very expensive to do a clinical trial. So no sample size in modern medicine has a size which represents the population. It's a very small fraction of the population. That's a shortcoming.
There also a problem that Ayurveda treats not just a disease, it treats the whole person, the body, mind and their unique prakriti. So how can you standardize this method? Because each individual is different.
That is true. And each individual is different. And centuries ago, we found out the differences by classifying populations into phenotypes, Kapha, Vata, Pitta, centuries ago. Recently, a person from Kerala, a very well-known person, Dr. M.S. Valyathan, who's a Padma Bhushan, who was the director of Chitra Thirumal College, an institute. He was helped by the scientific advisor to the Prime Minister. I'm talking of the period 2005 up to 2015. I knew Dr. Valyathan very well. Dr. Valyathan got support from the Department of Science and Technology, to look at the Prakriti classification in Ayurveda. We classify population into individual Prakriti types. You have, I have, all of us have unique Prakriti type. We all are unique. Now, he did a study, a scientific study, and he's published in the best scientific journals to show that underlying the Prakriti type is a genotype. So, the Prakriti type represents a genotype. So you are actually been treating according to the genetic variability in Ayurveda. When you treat according to Prakriti, you don't see at the frontiers of modern medicine and food science, frontiers I'm talking about. We are talking now about personalized food, personalized medicine. Why? Because each one of us is different. How do we know each one is different? Because each one of us has a different genotype. Now, we knew that this genotype in the form of phenotype. You don't need to do blood tests and do gene sequencing. We have other methods to identify your Prakriti. This is what Valyathan demonstrated. He said he used the Ayurvedic method, took a population of, good population, classified them according to Prakriti. Then the best scientific institutes, the Indian Institute of Science, the Manipal Institute, institutes in North India, they all studied those Prakritis and found that underlying them were unique genotypes. It was a landmark study. So it is not, it is as scientific as you want. And what it study shows is uniform treatment for any condition is scientifically wrong. You cannot even treat a common cold uniformly. It depends on the Prakriti of the person. It also depends on the nature of the disease, which is also not uniform. So today, what you are finding is that standardization needs to be done of products. But in treatment and in diagnosis, you cannot have a uniform diagnosis.
Modern medicine.
If you go to any good Ayurveda hospital, and I work in a university, and in our university, we have scientists and we have Vaidyas. And in the university, we have laboratories and we also have a hospital. The hospital we have was built by Mr. Ratan Tata himself. And he personally came to inaugurate that hospital. Now, what we find is that, say, if you have a person, what we find in our hospital is, and our hospital is typical, there's nothing great about the hospital, is as good as Kottakkal, or is as good as the best hospitals in Kerala or Karnataka, etc. Same. We follow the same Shastra. Now, what we find in our hospital, and we have electronic medical records of last 14 years. So I have lakhs of records, all electronically documented. What we find is actually customers come here for every condition of health except emergency, except acute symptoms or surgery. For everything else, they come there for stroke, they come here for Parkinson, they come here for skin disease, they come here for wounds which are diabetic and are not healing. You know, for everything people come. They come for GIT tract problems, that IBS, what is called. Women come here for infertility, for PCOD. So that is the data. I'm not giving opinion.
So these
And the women are coming, the people are coming on their own because we cannot afford to give free treatment. We pay. And if we didn't have good results, no one will come. But if for 14 years people are coming not only to my hospital, our university hospital, but to hundreds of hospitals, you can collect the data from Kottakkal of last 14 years, and let's collect from 50 other very good hospitals. Now the data will run into millions of patients. Find out what are patients coming there for. And when you see what they are coming there for, you will see that they treat everything except emergency, acute symptoms, and surgery. What does this mean? This means that this works. That's what it means.
now
What
modern
further evidence you need? You can convert this data into evidence using AI, using big data analysis, and we have enough talented people in this country to do all of this. This should be our priority for evidence, not insisting on creating evidence in the method in which we do for molecules. Molecule is a different story. Molecules were never used. They are never being used prior to their being introduced. So for molecules, we need to do all those studies and they are very necessary. But for Ayurveda, we don't need to do those studies. We need to do real world clinical data and analyze that. With AI, with big data analysis, you will get evidence whether it is effective or not. You'll get evidence whether it is safe or no. But the products, of course, they must be subjected to standardization, the products. You cannot have Partha Arishta made by 10 companies, which is different standard. So there you must follow standards of manufacture, you must follow GMP, and the government of India has created a pharmacopoeia. Unfortunately, no state is executing that pharmacopoeia properly. I used to work in the planning commission,
that
and I have observed
that are
this,
coming
that
to us,
no state.
that are coming to us, sir. That is during the late 80s, your work was being noticed by then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, and invited you for a presentation. And finally, you became an advisor to his technology missions. So will you explain that also, sir?
When I made a presentation before the Prime Minister, and I was not alone, there were 30 NGOs called from north, south, east, west of India to talk to the Prime Minister face to face and tell him about what they were doing. And what I told the Prime Minister is that, look, I am committed to this traditional knowledge because I am seeing that it works. And I think that our country should invest in strengthening this knowledge, particularly in the health field. And the Prime Minister responded and said, I agree with you. We must do it. Now, he did this. He happened to be Rajiv Gandhi. He happened to be Congress. But it is nothing, it's not a Congress policy. That was his opinion as the Prime Minister. And thanks to that opinion, which was heard by the bureaucrats, I got to meet his chief advisor in science and technology, which was Sam Pitroda. I didn't know Sam Pitroda at all. He is not my uncle or he's not my relative. I met him thanks to Rajiv Gandhi. Rajiv Gandhi advised him that have a look and see what is happening, see how we can help. Now, this is how it happened. And yes, I helped the National Knowledge Commission, in which Sam Pitroda was the chairman, and the National Innovation Council, etc. And I also worked as an advisor in the Planning Commission for 5 years honorary.
National
I was
Innovation
not.
Council during the UPA term.
Yes,
Later.
yes.
So will
Yes,
you
yes.
brief the work you done during those periods?
In those days, I wrote out some chapters on the future of drug discovery. You see, in the government of India, there is the CSIR, Central Council of Industrial Research, and the CSIR has a unit where they have computerized all the herbal formulations from Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, and the Tibetan system, what is called Swarikpa. How many formulations have they computerized? This government of India has formed, the CSIR has done, a scientific institution has done it. That computerization is called Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, TKDL, Government of India. Where is it kept? In the office of CSIR, one of the offices of CSIR. Now, that has got 300,000 herbal formulations from our indigenous knowledge systems for a wide range of conditions. Now, I wrote that chapter out for the Knowledge Commission and all that, where I told them, look, this is the gold mine for producing future drugs in India.
So this
Because
database is created during the Knowledge Commission period.
it was
Technology
created,
Mission.
it was not to do with the Knowledge Commission, but the Knowledge Commission took note of it. It was done by Professor Mashelkar, who was the Director General of CSIR. He saw the value of it and he created a whole unit in CSIR to do this work. It was
In which
referred
period,
to by
sir?
the Knowledge Commission.
In
It
which
was
period?
referred to by others. It is still being used.
Okay.
But this is the future of drug discovery. India has a gold mine because the total number of modern drugs in the world is only 4,000. That's all. Molecular drugs. Here you're sitting on 300,000 drugs. And the future of drugs now, we know, in the way science is advancing, that single molecule for a single target. This is how old days drugs were made, modern drugs were made.
All these are patented, sir?
Huh?
These 300,000 combinations are patented, sir?
They cannot be patented because it is prior art. Prior art means it is part of the indigenous knowledge system. It is derived from the textbooks of Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Swarikpa. So it cannot be patented because it is already known. It is not new knowledge. It is indigenous knowledge. So patent is, but we don't allow it to be patented by America.
Okay.
If anyone patents, and there were such things, there was basmati rice and there was turmeric and all, which were patented in America, the TKDL challenged it and said, how can you patent? This is already known here. And they threw out those patents, the American patent. That you can use it.
Okay.
But we cannot patent it, but we can develop drugs from it.
Okay.
Because I'm saying the future of drugs, what we realize is that every health condition is got multiple causes, multiple factors. And therefore, future drugs will have to be targeted in the human biology at multiple targets. So, for example, you have a drug which you may be familiar with called metformin. It's a drug for diabetes. It's a high selling, one of the highest selling drugs for diabetes, metformin. It's a single molecule. Now, what does that molecule do? It lowers the elevated sugar. You've got extra sugar above the limit that is needed, then it will bring it down very quickly, that molecule. But it does not treat diabetes. It only reduces the symptom of sugar. Diabetes is a problem of how glucose is being metabolized in your body. Metformin is not the solution for glucose metabolism at all, not at all. Now, the solution for diabetes in India will not come from molecule. Molecule is only for a symptom that is very, very high, acute symptom, high sugar level. Take metformin, it will bring it down very quickly. But it is not the solution for curing diabetes. For diabetes, you need herbal preparation, multiple molecules, and molecules which target multiple targets in the body. Now, we do that kind of study in our university, and many other universities may also be doing that. So, diabetes is a very complex condition in biology.
So,
Glucose metabolism has to be corrected. It cannot be corrected by a single molecule. It needs multiple molecules targeting multiple biological targets in the body.
so what were your key contributions when you were working with the technology mission?
In the technology mission, what I was able to draw attention of the technology missions was that the strategy for immunization, which was the mainstream method of immunizing, could be complemented by Ayurvedic methods of immunization. And that was the sensitivity that we brought into the picture. And the real benefit of my interaction with the technology missions happened outside the technology missions, because Mr. Sam Pitroda, who was the leader of the technology missions, became personally convinced that we needed to create an institution, a full-fledged institution, to strengthen indigenous health sciences. And that's how he joined me to become a co-founder of a foundation that we created in Bangalore, a foundation for the revitalization of local health traditions. That's how we called it. And that foundation has today become a university, and it's called the Transdisciplinary University. And Mr. Pitroda, in his personal capacity, continues to be associated with it. But he got convinced about it while I was working with him in the technology missions.
And during your work with the National Knowledge Commission, you wrote chapters on this
Yes.
knowledge about these traditional
Yes.
medicines. How this work laid the groundwork for the formation of the Ministry of Ayush in 2014.
No, but that's not correct. It did not lay the foundations for
Okay.
the Ministry of Ayush to be created. That was a decision taken by the government in 2014. But I have worked with the Ministry of Ayush for a very long time. And I worked, my contribution to the department at that time when I was there, it was the Department of Ayush. My contribution to the Department of Ayush started in 2002, when in the policy of the Department of Ayush, they recognized that we must also support community-based local health traditions. That is there in the 2002 policy of the Department of Ayush. Subsequently, when I worked in the Planning Commission, I persuaded Montek Singh Ahuliwala and my member health. It was a lady who was a member of health, Saida Hamid. I persuaded them to increase the budget for the Ayush department 4 times to what it was previously. And that happened, that was my contribution through the Planning Commission. So that was what I did indirectly for the Ayush department. Of course, all that money was spent by the ministry and by the department, and not by, I was only a person in the Planning Commission. The execution and all was done by the department and subsequently the ministry. But I have contributed to thought processes, certainly, in the ministry.
Your work was mostly for the integration of different medical systems. and it's a sensitive subject because a lot of opposition also here, that is it will promote mixopathy. But what's the need is to promote integrative health, but it's creating mixopathy here.
Globally, it is not only India and not only my view. Globally today, integration is the demand all over the world. Why? Because no single system of healthcare, whether it's allopathy, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's yoga, whether it is osteopathy, no single system of medicine has the best answers to all the problems. What we are seeing globally is that mainstream allopathy is the best system for surgery. No other system is better than them. They are the best system for emergency care. No other system is good. And they are the best system for treating acute symptoms, pain. You want to dilate the bronchi. You're getting a heart attack and you want to dilate the vessels in the heart. Then you have beta blockers and you have all kinds of drugs. They are the best for acute symptoms, best for emergency, best for surgery. But they are no good in chronic conditions. I wouldn't go to allopathy for treating diabetes unless I had an acute symptom like very elevated sugar. But that's a temporary relief. Diabetes is not a problem that allopathy can treat, except for acute symptoms, or for that matter, any other condition. Whether it is IBS, GIT tract problem, whether it is a skin problem, psoriasis, whether it is a back problem, skeletal disorders, whether it is a non-healing wound, whether it is all these conditions, you need to involve other systems. And that is what is the reason for integrative medicine. Today, one other very important reason is personalization of both food and medicine. You cannot do personalization with only the help of any single system. The most personalized system today happens to be Ayurveda because of their knowledge of phenotypes, and thanks to the work of M.S. Valyathan in Kerala, and thanks to the work of Bhushan Patwardhan from Pune, it has been shown that the phenotypes and the genotypes, they overlap. Now, the idea came from Ayurveda. And phenotyping is a very cheap method of classification. Genotype is very expensive. I can do your phenotype within 45 minutes and no laboratory, no nothing.
Now,
personalization is another reason why integrative medicine is moving. But the main reason is two things. One, everybody realizes no single system has the best answers. And finally, when you see the behavior of citizens all over the world, health-seeking behavior, it's called, studies all over the world, WHO has published these studies on health-seeking behavior. Health-seeking behavior is showing millions of citizens in Europe, in America, in India, in Asia, are not going to any single system for all their needs. For emergency, they go there. For surgery, they go there. For chronic condition, they go somewhere else. For something else, they go to yoga, where it is non-drug therapy. So the future lies in the combination of these. And it is because now there are people who have vested interest, like the pharma industry. They want to make money at any cost. And so they prevent other systems from coming, which are maybe better than their own solutions. They fool the people by giving them data saying, no, the solution to this thing is one single product. So these are all obstacles that are there on the way. But the future of medicine and food, even food is the same thing. There is no uniform formula for food health. Everybody needs proteins, carbohydrates, fats, minerals. But the extent of protein, carbohydrate, fat, mineral that an individual needs varies. It's not the same. You can't give the same content of protein, carbohydrate, fat to everybody. It depends on your metabolism. And so even in food, we are now looking at personalized food. Today, as you will see from the industry, they're wearing wearables, you know. There are wearables where you can track your blood pressure, your own, personal, or your glucose absorption, postprandial. All this you can track through now wearables, very expensive. And why are the wearables coming? Because they want to track individualized data of these 20 parameters, which wearables pick up. And they hope that with that data, they can tell personalized solutions for food and medicine. That is the hope. But today, that data is not sufficient. The 20 parameters don't give you a proper scientific picture of what you need as medicine or food. Not yet.
At
We
this
still have a
point,
way to go.
At this point, can I ask you some major problems in the health sector? That is, India is leading in non-communicable diseases, especially diabetes. India is the world capital of diabetes, and for Kerala is leading among the states in India. So for cardiac diseases also, same way the disabilities due to stroke affecting. So what this your approach gives, what solution your approach gives these cases?
No, I think a great deal of emphasis has to be done on first food.
Okay.
Food, because food is the main thing that we are all eating. And food has to become personalized if you want to reduce the incidence of all these diseases. Because we are eating anything, anytime. And everybody is eating the same thing. Everybody, you go to now any restaurant, and in Kerala or anywhere you go, and you will get some Punjabi dish called maa ki dal, or you'll get paneer or something like that. And the dishes are becoming standardized, across the country. Or modern foods, pizzas and this and that and all that. Now we need to shift from these kinds of things to educating people how to eat food that is suited for their genotype, for their phenotype, for their prakriti. That will solve, half the problems of health. We are not eating the right kind of food. All of us are eating the same kind of food, and that creates problems for many people. We know that the main cause of non-communicable diseases is food. Food is the starting problem. So one is food. We have to concentrate a great deal on food, and we have to try and see how to create software and apps where every human being can, on an app, find out what is the food suited for me from the menu and from the ingredients that are available in his state. In Kerala, whatever is available, and you need not bring many ingredients from America or here or there. But we have to customize those ingredients available in every state to the needs of individuals. So food first. That is the first step towards better healthcare. Secondly, we have to now change medical education. And we cannot have hospitals where only one system is practiced. This makes no sense. It puts the customer in so much difficulty. When I want surgery, I'll go there. When I have NCD, I'll go there. When I want some other thing for yoga, I'll go somewhere else. This is such an inconvenience, and that is because of government policy, nothing else. The government policy in education, the government policy in healthcare does not encourage integrative education. So MBBS is only studying one kind of education. Ayurveda is only studying his own kind of education. No, the future of education has to be integrative, but integrative in an intelligent way, not quackery, not mixopathy. You see, what is the difference actually between, for example, Ayurveda and modern medicine? Modern medicine looks at nature in a way which is called the It separates the scientist from the nature. It's called observer, observed. Observer is scientist, observed is nature. But they are two separate things in science. Now, you cannot look at nature by separation. Observer and observed. Observer is part of the observed, it's not separate.
Now modern science also came to that path with quantum mechanics. That is the observer.
That is true, but that is in those things like quantum mechanics, we are realizing that the observer is part of the observed and influences the observed.
Okay.
But in Indian knowledge systems, it is the opposite. We look at nature by being one with it, not separate. Yoga is all about experiencing your oneness. Ayurveda also, its outlook is all based on oneness, not separation. Now, I can go much more in detail on this subject because I am working in a university. So we teach people what is the difference in the scientific way of modern science and what is the difference in the way in which Ayurveda looks at nature. It's a whole big module. It needs to be understood. You know, even education. We have just borrowed education, all our education system, from school to university, is only 150 years old. That 150 years ago, the British introduced their model of school education, their model of university education in India, and everybody multiplied it. It is creating a lot of damage because I have worked in tribal areas. I'm telling from my experience. Now, when I was working in the tribal area, I found a tribal can grow his own food. He can build his own house. He knows so much about the forest. But the moment you put him in the school and he goes to the SSLC board, he becomes de-skilled. He can no longer farm. He can no longer build his house. He can no longer do so many things. All he knows is to read, write, arithmetic and all that, which doesn't give him a job.
We still follow most of the Macaulay system of education, not anything from the basic education system formulated by Gandhiji.
We need to change these things. Not only in medical education must become integrative, even general education has to become integrated. It has to become multicultural. You see, historians will note that in the last 3 centuries, the whole world has become monoculture, only following Western way of thinking, Western culture, Western intellectual tradition, nothing wrong with it. But what about Chinese? What about African? What about Indian? What about South America? It must become multicultural. You cannot teach in a university single way to look at nature and society. Every university must teach multiple ways of looking at nature and society. So education has become multicultural. Today it is monocultural, whether it is in Cambridge or in Princeton or in Indian Institute of Science or in Kerala University. Everywhere the education is the same. Monocultural. If a child from Kerala has a high ranking parent who gets suddenly transferred to England, you know that your child can easily shift to an English school because the curriculum is the same. This is absurd, no? How can you be teaching exactly the same history, geography that the other in Kerala as in London or as in New York? This is part of monoculture. It must become multicultural. It's a complex subject.
Now, what are the new frontiers that the transdisciplinary university, where you are the vice chancellor, opened for
I can only list out some of the areas in which we are working.
Both for the public and the student community. What are the new frontiers open?
We are working on research and education related to the following fields, which are all new fields in university systems. 1, personalized nutrition. 2, glucose and lipid metabolism. 3, cognitive health, memory. We have no solutions to improving memory in any other knowledge system unless you follow a system which is a combination of Ayurveda and biology. So cognitive health, sustainable proteins from plants. Plant proteins, if you want to do work in, again, you need to combine the knowledge of integrative biology and Ayurveda. We work on anemia and malnutrition. We have solutions for anemia where if you eat an amla, nelly, fruit, you will find your absorption of iron from your normal meal will go up. We don't promote it. You are giving ferric sulfate, which is a molecule, and ferric sulfate is having 100 milligrams of iron. Okay, the ferrous sulfate, 100 milligrams of iron, which damage inside, in fact, the body. The body only needs 1 milligram, but we are not able to absorb it in the form of ferrous sulfate. So no women takes it. They take it for some time, they get edema, they get nausea, and then they stop using it. So we are working on anemia and malnutrition. We are working with animal health. We have shown with the cooperation with National Dairy Development Board over 15 years now, including the dairies in Kerala, we have shown that if you use Pashu Ayurveda herbal solutions for treating the conditions of animals, you don't need antibiotics. Today, your milk in Kerala, you cannot drink it actually because it has residues of antibiotics and it creates what is called antimicrobial resistance, AMR. So we are working to remove that AMR. Of course, we are doing great work on conserving wild gene pools of medicinal and food plants all over India. We have helped to launch with the state forest departments the largest program in India and in the tropical world for conserving wild gene pools north, south, east, west of India, including in states like Kerala. We ask Kerala Forest Department, they'll tell you the number of medicinal plant conservation areas that they have created in partnership with FRLHT and TDU. We are now building a citizens portal driven by AI LLM. We must use this technology, AI and large language model, LLM, AI LLM. So every citizen in any village, taluka, town or city can access the knowledge of the plants found in his locality and their uses for human health, for food, and for animal health. So these are some of the things that we are doing.
And the herbarium you developed?
Yes, we have created the country's only national botanical repository. It's called a herbarium. It's the only one in India of the entire medicinal and food plants of the country. We work with the Royal Botanical Gardens, Kew, and all these people, but we are the only institution in India which has a national level herbarium of medicinal plants. National Herbarium of General Flora, the best institution is the Botanical Survey of India. But for medicinal plants, it is us.
What's the importance of this herbarium, sir, to the medical students all over in our country?
Yes, this herbarium establishes the identity of the plants. Today now, if supposing someone says, I am using in a preparation Shankapushpi, then you must know what is Shankapushpi, and the way to verify what is Shankapushpi would be to go to a herbarium. They will show you the correct, authentic identity of that plant. Or you're saying Vidam, which is a plant, then correct identity you need to, it's the identity of the botanicals in nature, the correct identity. There are methods to do it. We have dried specimens, we have chemical fingerprints, we have DNA markers and all that.
So the students can access the complete information about these plants.
Students of botany, students of conservation, and students of medical science.
Finally, what message of hope and direction would you like to offer to the general public and the young learners who are exploring integrative approaches to health?
No, I think my message is that, two messages. One is that young people must now not only be chasing jobs, in either America and Europe and all these places, there is so much to do in our country. And you can do it in agriculture, you can do it in healthcare, you can do it in metallurgy, you can do it in space technology. Because space technology we're already demonstrating. But my message is that, I have only been successful in doing a little bit of work in revitalizing indigenous knowledge systems of health. But if I had the energy, which I don't, and had the bandwidth, which I don't, to do it in many other fields, then it would be, but many people can do it. So young people today must not only be thinking of, those who are in a position to, those who have liabilities and all, you may not be able to do, but those who are creative and all, start looking at your society, start seeing the challenges that are there in your society. See the challenges in agriculture, see the challenges in healthcare, see the challenges in nutrition, see the challenges in information technology. Today, renewable energy is a big challenge, but you have to bring the costs down. You have to bring costs. There are lots and lots of challenges. Look at the challenges in your own country and solve them. Today the ecosystem is there to solve them. There are lots of people who give support for startups, but startup in education, create new schools of medicine, create new kind of agriculture which is organic. The current agriculture is not good enough because it is only looking at high yield and big size of grains, of fruits, not nutrition. The rice that we produce is not nutritious rice. It is only high yielding and big grain. But nutrition level, how much of iron, zinc, magnesium, is very poor. We're not concentrating on that. There's a big challenge in agriculture also. In every field, there is a challenge.
I must say that your story is truly inspiring and it's one of transformative education, deep community engagement, and institutional innovation, fusing tribal wisdom with modern science. You have shown us that this India's traditional health systems are not just a legacy of the past, but a pathway to a more holistic, equitable, and sustainable future. Thank you, Dr. Anand Darshan Shankar.
Thank you,
for
very well
joining
summed up.
us.
Thank you very much.
This is Science Talk. Until next time, keep asking questions, staying curious for building a better tomorrow.